Moving on to our next panel. This panel is going to be addressing single-use and process development technologies, making the right choice or choices for your process. I'd like to introduce moderator Susan Dexter, who is Managing Director of the Latham Biopharm Group. Good morning, afternoon. I think we're just crossed over the noontime hour, and thank you all for coming. So we're going to talk today, as we already said, about single-use processing and how to strategically figure out what you should have as a CMO. We've got 3 CMOs on the panel at various different stages of growth, through acquisition, through organic growth, and we're going to talk about strategies, what they have, how they might do things differently, and answer any questions from the audience. Just as a raise of hands, anyone here outsourcing right now, using CMOs? Anyone manufacturing drugs? No. Okay, 1. Okay. That's good to know. So I want to let the panel introduce themselves briefly, and we can start with Magnus at the beginning. Magnus, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name's Magnus Schroeder. I'm the head of downstream development at CMC Biologics in Seattle. So we just became part of the Japanese company Asahi Glass Company just recently. So we're now part of that global conglomerate with sites in Denmark, Germany, Japan, and the US. So I've just recently joined and been there for almost a year. Prior to that, I've had roles in process development and CMC strategy at CSL in Australia and in Germany.
Thank you, Deb.
Is it on? It is on. Okay. Sorry, the little light's not on. My name is Deborah Harris. I work for Epzina here in San Diego. Prior to that, a long-time stint for Sandoz doing small molecules, and working a little bit further back from that actually for Avid Bioservices. I have a lot of experience in radio labeling, in manufacturing and process development, right from the start of conception of the molecule all the way through to the end. Have launched products through Sandoz, and hope to be able to answer your questions today.
Hi, I'm Steve Lamb. I'm the Senior Vice President of Biologics for Patheon. I've been with Patheon for about a year and a half now, and prior to Patheon I was with Amgen for about 18 years and had the opportunity to work in almost all parts of operations with them, so manufacturing, supply chain, process development, quality. And then prior to that I was with another CDMO, Lonza, for a number of years, and before that I was with some small biotech companies.
And as a little bit of background on myself, I'm Susan Dexter. I'm Managing Director at Latham Biopharm Group, so I consult. We're a consulting company. We do a lot of non-dilutive funding through government contract work, but my specialty is contract manufacturing, CMC, process development support. So I consult companies for strategy development, business development. We offer project management, and I also worked at multiple CMOs, Lonza being the first one. It was Celtic at the time. And then the Dow Chemical Company, Accelerex, and Laureate Pharma. Right, so we're going to start the discussion here by taking a little time to just go through the transitions of single-use technologies. It's a big topic. It's been talked about a lot. But then, when you're a CMO, what is the strategic process you go through to decide what kind of capability you have in your plant? And how do you pitch that to your client? What is the value proposition? Because you're having to deal with a lot of unknowns, right? You've got products coming in that you know nothing about. You have to decide what technologies you're going to do before you even know what process you're going to run. And several of our panelists have actually grown through, first organically and then through acquisition. So now you have multiple sites globally that have different technologies, different capabilities. So we're going to ask the panelists to kind of go through the process of understanding the business model, how to go forward with it, and what what they're strategizing in order to get to a cohesive capability in-house. So I want to start with kind of the link between process development and manufacturing. Steve, we'll start with you. Just as Patheon has grown by, organically quite considerably since its inception many years ago, and you've acquired multiple sites, and they had process development and manufacturing. So how have you looked at that from a strategic point of view to decide where those technologies fit and how to go about running your business?
So, Susan, as you mentioned, Patheon Biologics was created really by bringing together three companies. So there was the DSM portion, which included Groningen, Netherlands, Brisbane, Australia, and then Gallus. And Gallus had acquired Laureate just probably a year or so, or less than that, before Patheon acquired Gallus. And so that's really three companies coming together. And process development was spread across the sites. And so there were some strategic decisions made to centralize process development really within two sites, so Princeton and St. Louis. And at the time, the strategy was to focus Princeton, New Jersey, on early stage process development, and focus St. Louis, which was a commercial site, on late stage process development. That was really around growing the business. So we were starting from a situation where we were still, as you mentioned, Susan, organically growing both the process development groups in Princeton and in St. Louis, and we had to focus them. But we're at a point now where we've gotten to the place where we're comfortable with those capabilities, and we're beginning to cross and have St. Louis develop early development skills and Princeton develop late development skills. And that's important because, as you mentioned, not only the capabilities, but the equipment and what the lab supports has to come along with that. And so that's how we've kind of worked through that. And the reason that we've really focused on now, as we mature the organization, adding those capabilities across both sites is because when business comes in, right, the customers are bringing in programs at different stages. And so it's very difficult to be able to simply put customers always in Princeton if it's early and always in St. Louis if it's late, because your capacity doesn't work that way, right? Programs are long, capacity and demand can be lumpy, and so over time what we've developed is this need to kind of balance it all out.
Okay, so Magnus, so you've got a group of companies as well that you've acquired over time, and organic growth was part of the initial strategy. Can you just go through your process of how you strategically are linking these sites together?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Susan. So I think it's fair to say that the story of CMC began in Denmark and really started as an innovative CMO that wants to bring new technology to the market and kind of aggressively grow there. But it was later clear that capacity was needed. So the site in Seattle, which used to be ICOS, which primarily was a chemical synthesis company, was bought, and we had some legacy stainless steel bioreactors there. But by the time at around 2008, it becomes clear that the market as it currently is going in a different direction, in the sense that there's so much uncertainty nowadays with drugs moving forward in the pipeline. Even when you have a feeling that they could be blockbuster or close to a blockbuster, you might still have very large uncertainty around the time frame when you need that capacity. So that's when we kind of got together and really formulated a strategy. How can we deliver service to our clients to kind of get the drugs to the patient, but also kind of de-risk this whole scale-up and investment? So that's when the idea of using 2,000-liter bioreactors as your baseline, and then adding multiples of those 2,000-liter reactors into a facility came up. So we have in Seattle, we have a 6-pack, meaning 6 times 2,000 liters, which doesn't mean you have to run 6 times 2,000. It can be anything from 1 to 6. And in Copenhagen, we currently have a 3-pack, soon going to be scaled up to a 6-pack. So this gives you this flexibility to develop processes based on your known 2,000-liter bioreactor system. But then the main thing is then to scale up by scaling out, by replicating your known 2,000-liter bioreactor. That that has been a winning strategy so far. We're really looking forward to expanding our capacity using the same approach. The stainless steel is still there, and if there's a demand for it, we certainly will use these, and we have commercial processes that use them. But in terms of going into the future, I think it's a better strategy to stay with single-use technologies and scale up by multiple 2,000-liter reactors. By the time you really know what your market demands are, then you might consider using a different strategy. But right now, the market doesn't look like that.
As a follow-on to that, As a follow-on to that, how do you manage the downstream part? Because if you're taking those 6 bioreactors and you're pushing them as a single batch downstream, how do you predict and scale for that in a facility that it could be 1 or it could be 6, and you're 3 grams per liter per 2,000 liter is
Yeah,
a lot of protein.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a downstream person, so you see me here sweating. No, it clearly is the upstream in a way, and my upstream colleagues might shoot me, but in a way it has become easier, right? You increase your